Chief of Police.
Major Ray Waters, Pitt County Sheriff's Office Operations.
Bill Hopper, Pitt-Greenville Airport Executive Director.
So just to clear up some initial confusion, the Highway Patrol will be assuming primary responsibility of the investigation from this point moving forward, and I will explain furthermore as we dive into it. But approximately at 7:51 a.m. this morning, Greenville Fire and Rescue and Police Department received a phone call for a private plane crash that occurred right out here off of Highway 11. Upon arriving, a search was launched to see if any surviving people or passengers on board could be located. No passengers or no survivors were located. At which point the Highway Patrol, we are tasked with investigating all plane crashes that occur statewide. We were then contacted to respond to the scene. We coordinated with Greenville Police Department as well as Greenville Fire and Rescue to set up a perimeter and secure the crash scene. And after that time frame, we contacted the FAA and the NTSB to notify them of the plane crash as well, so they could start their initial investigation. Currently, those agencies are en route to the scene here in Greenville to conduct their investigation as well. And again, as I said earlier, we will provide site security until they arrive. Greenville Police Department will assist us with those matters as well. Currently moving forward as far as traffic, North Memorial Drive in between Belleville Road and Airport Road will be closed for an extended time today. As soon as we have something more solid or concrete to let you know when that roadway will open back up for normal traffic flow, we will push those alerts out. I know you all probably have some questions, but I'll be honest, I have very limited information at this time considering that the collision just occurred. I know one of them may be identifying the victims. Right now, we're in the process of investigating the scene, trying to identify the victims and make next of kin contact with the family. So I ask you to bear with us as we go through that process. I'm not going to put a time frame on it, but I will tell you, I will notify you as soon as we get to that point in juncture to where I can release the names of those that were on aboard the plane.
The Chinese researchers have achieved a significant breakthrough in material science. A team of scientists at the Institute of Physics have developed a 2D metals that are 200,000 times thinner than human hair. Now imagine a string of single atoms. Just to put things in perspective, an atom is 1,000,000 times smaller than the thinnest human hair. In scientific terms, true 2D materials are just one or a few atoms thick, roughly 1/1,000,000th the thickness of a paper. The research team melted bismuth at a high temperature and then applied a technique called van der Waals squeezing to create the 2D metal. The process continues over several hours to form a single atom layer. The Chinese scientists have already produced about 5 types of 2D metals, including bismuth, tin, and lead.
Here's a single atom layer 2D bismuth metal created via our VDW squeezing technique. To observe it clearly, we placed it under an optical microscope, which magnified the sample about 1,000 times. The bismuth is encapsulated by a single layer of molybdenum disulfide, with the darker color indicating the presence of the bismuth metal sample in the middle.
Now, this achievement marks the first successful fabrication of a larger area 2D metal materials, which have great stability in various environments. According to the research team, it holds the potential to revolutionize technologies such as ultra-small, low-power transistors and transparent displays.
Shifting our focus to Antarctica, where scientists have detected a highly pathogenic avian flu among the birds. Our next report telling you more.
In the cold, remote southernmost point of Earth, scientists have found unprecedented death rates among skuas, a predatory seabird native to Antarctic ecosystems. Skuas scavenge on corpses and predate on other birds. So they are particularly likely to become infected by feeding on infected birds. Scientists have blamed it on the highly pathogenic avian influenza H5N1. Researchers from Chile uncovered significant skua bird mortality due to the highly pathogenic avian influenza H5N1. The study was a collaborative investigation between the Pontifical Catholic University of Chile and the Base Millennium Institute. Their report was released on March 12th, and what they discovered represents the southernmost documented occurrence of the H5N1 virus to date.
The detection of avian flu in Antarctica has raised many concerns among all of us doing Antarctic research because it poses a threat to biodiversity, affecting not only marine birds, but also mammals.
The study, which involved extensive sample collection and laboratory analysis, demonstrates the virus has successfully migrated from South America to Antarctica. It now threatens one of the Earth's most pristine and fragile ecosystems, the Antarctica.
Last year, we found the first positive cases, but didn't observe any mortality. We conducted extensive sampling on the Antarctic Peninsula and around the continent. During the birds' breeding season this year, we observed mortality, mainly in skuas. These species feed on dead animals from the peninsula and can spread the virus to more distant places and other species.
The spread of avian influenza, commonly called bird flu, has ravaged flocks worldwide. As a result, supply chains have been disrupted, which has fueled higher food prices. Its spread to mammals also raised concerns among governments about the risk of human transmission. The highly pathogenic form of H5N1 bird flu has been circulating in Europe, Asia and Africa since 2020. It has killed many birds and has caused outbreaks on poultry farms in Antarctica in October 2024. Hundreds of king penguins and elephant seal pups were found dead from H5N1. In the subantarctic Crozet and Kerguelen Islands, that means the virus has moved more than halfway around the Antarctic towards Australia and New Zealand, which are the only major countries that remain free of the virus. But now, there's concern that the flu in Antarctica could serve as a springboard to Australia, the only region free of H5N1 in the wild. Scientists are worried. They are expressing concern about the massive range of expansion of the virus. They say by this rate, the virus has the capacity to spread more. And if that happens, it's a catastrophe in the making.
What if I say scientists may have found a hack to stop the spread of malaria? Would you believe me? An international team of scientists are genetically modifying mosquitoes in the hope that they can halt one of the world's deadliest diseases from spreading further. And they are doing so using a unique technology known as gene drive. Basically, scientists at the Imperial College in London, who are a part of the international research group called Transmission Zero, are on to making what can be called a malaria-restrained mosquito that passes on its resistance to future generations. They're doing so by deploying a technique which uses genes taken from the honeybee and the African clawed frog that blocks normal growth of the malaria parasite inside the mosquito. If successful, this could prove to be groundbreaking and revolutionary. And it could even mean a wipeout of the mosquito-borne disease, which means it could save millions of lives, especially in countries where the disease is endemic. As for the World Health Organization, or WHO, malaria caused 600,000 deaths in 2023, of which 90% are children under 5. And guess where most of them are from? It's Africa. That's how grave this disease is, which explains why researchers are working day and night to breed these genetically modified mosquitoes in labs. However, it is not without challenges as to ensure the safety and effectiveness of this technology on field. Extensive testing and validation are required. As of now, WHO has endorsed only 2 vaccines against malaria as safe and effective in disease prevention in children. But solution for a larger population, that still remains to be found. The question is, can this breakthrough change that and save a generation exposed to deadly mosquito bites? Well, we sincerely hope so.
A 22-year-old woman was fatally stabbed on March 11 while live streaming outdoors in Tokyo's Takadanobaba neighborhood, popular with students due to its proximity to top universities.
こちらで20代の女性が刃物に刺されたと通報があったということです。
A 42-year-old man was arrested at the scene of the crime on suspicion of attempted murder, but police are set to change the charge to murder. Multiple people had witnessed the crime.
仕事してる時に、ギャー助けてというものすごい声が、響いてきたと。ものすごいなんていうか必死の叫び声っていうか、ギャー助けて、うわーっていうような感じですかね。
声聞こえた後、どのぐらいその男の人はそこに停止して？
いや、多分ずっといましたよ。警察が来るまでそのままじーっと様子見てるっていうか、落ち着いてなんか様子見てるなっていう感じ。10分ぐらいじゃないですか。
The witness said he thought the man was helping the woman because of his calm demeanor.
普通になんか、取り押さえられてるって感じだったんで、ああ、その人犯人というかだったのかって。
いや、もう女の人が倒れてて、で犯人の男性がなんか警察の人になんか輪っかみたいなのでなんか押さえつけられてるっていう、なんか表情も何も変えず、なんか言ってを見てました。
The man was also seen claiming to be the suspect.
犯人誰だとかなんかその犯人いるかみたいになって手を挙げてそのまま逮捕されました。
According to police, multiple calls came in around 10 a.m. and the suspect was arrested within 10 minutes. The woman was stabbed in the head and neck with a 13-centimeter blade survival knife dozens of times. She was confirmed dead at the hospital. A selfie stick was found at the crime scene, where the woman was in the middle of live streaming. The suspect told police he located her from her live stream. Another witness said he saw the man using her phone after the attack.
女の人のスマホをなんかスマホなのか機械をこう持ち上げて女の人の顔を映して置いて捕まっちゃいました。すぐ警察来て。
じゃあ女の人にそれを向けて。
そうです、顔に。
The suspect claims that he did not intend to kill her and denies the allegations. According to investigators, the man claimed that he lent over 2 million yen to the woman and decided to commit the crime because she would not pay it back. The suspect also claimed the two became acquainted after the man began visiting the restaurant where the woman worked. This is an ongoing investigation.
Bangladesh has been gripped by fierce demonstrations after an 8-year-old child who was raped in Bangladesh died of her injuries on Thursday. Yes, an 8-year-old child was raped and now she's no more. According to a case filed by her mother, the girl was raped while visiting her sister's house in the city of Magora sometime between the night of 5th March and the following morning. The elder sister's 18-year-old husband, along with his parents and brother, have been arrested and placed on remand. But on Thursday night, after hearing news of the child's death, an angry mob descended on the house where the incident is alleged to have taken place, setting it on fire. She fought hard for her life, spending 6 days in a critical condition at the military hospital in Dhaka, but she succumbed to her injuries. Thousands of people gathered in the public square in Magora for the Islamic funeral prayer before she was laid to rest. As the demonstration swelled on Thursday, Bangladesh police imposed restrictions on all kinds of meetings, rallies and gatherings in key locations for an indefinite period. Areas under restriction include the official residence of Chief Advisor Mohammad Yunus and nearby locations. However, the police is having a hard time to bring the situation under control. The demonstrators have been demanding speedy justice for rape victims, and they're asking for reformed laws that uphold women and children's safety. Demonstrators have also called for greater clarity around the legal definition of what rape is in Bangladesh. How is rape defined in Bangladesh? They say currently the definition of rape is ambiguous. The rape of minors is punishable by death in Bangladesh. As per a law that was passed in 2020, the introduction of that law followed a series of high-profile sexual violence cases, including the brutal gang assault on a 37-year-old woman that was shot and then spread on social media. This has also brought to focus the alleged incompetence of the Yunus-led interim government to curb gender-based violence erupting across the country. You see, less than a week after the rape of that young girl, the 8-year-old child in Magora, media reports from Bangladesh emerged of at least 3 rapes of children of around the same age, but in different parts of Bangladesh. In some cases, the accused were neighbors of the victim, while others were close relatives. As per the Bangladesh International Arbitration Center, 3,438 child rape cases have been filed in Bangladesh in the last 8 years, of which at least 539 of them are under the age of 6, and 933 are between the ages of 7 and 12. But these are just the cases which have been reported. The real number of victims could be much higher, much more. As far as the case of the 8-year-old girl is concerned, the trial of the rape and murder case is expected to begin within the next 7 days.
Es ist die klare Botschaft an unsere Partner und Freunde, aber auch an die Gegner, an die Feinde unserer Freiheit. Wir sind verteidigungsfähig und wir sind auch jetzt in vollem Umfang verteidigungsbereit. Es wird an keiner Stelle mehr an den finanziellen Mitteln fehlen, um die Freiheit, den Frieden auf unserem Kontinent zu verteidigen. Das ist mir deshalb besonders wichtig, weil wir auch in Europa, auch in der NATO vor einer ganzen Reihe von wichtigen Entscheidungen in den nächsten Wochen stehen. Deutschland ist zurück. Deutschland leistet seinen großen Beitrag zur Verteidigung der Freiheit und des Friedens in Europa. Wir haben uns bei der Verteidigung auf den Vorschlag verständigt, dass Ausgaben für die Verteidigung, aber auch Ausgaben des Bundes für den Zivil- und Bevölkerungsschutz, Ausgaben für die Nachrichtendienste, Ausgaben für die Sicherheit in der Informationstechnik und Ausgaben für die Hilfe für völkerrechtswidrig angegriffene Staaten ausgenommen werden aus der Schuldenbremse, soweit sie 1% des Bruttoinlandproduktes unseres Landes überschreiten. Wir haben die Informationen bekommen, dass der Bundeskanzler hat uns auch selber gesagt, auch mir gesagt, dass er bereit ist, diese 3 Milliarden in dem Augenblick freizugeben, wo dieses Sondervermögen und auch diese Entscheidung über die Verteidigungsausgaben beschlossen worden sind. Also ich gehe davon aus, dass spätestens mit der Bundesratsentscheidung in der nächsten Woche diese 3 Milliarden jetzt auch als überplanmäßige Ausgabe geleistet werden können. Da gibt es eine Bestätigung, ja.
I'm voting no on the CR. I believe that the CR would do terrible damage. It's not even a CR. It's a new bill written exclusively by Republicans that would do great damage to Minnesota. It does not fund projects that have gotten bipartisan support. It cuts funding for fetal alcohol syndrome and for Alzheimer's. And I also think that now is the time for Democrats to fight on this and to show that we're not going to just stand by while Republicans are handing over all this power to the president.
I'm voting no today.
On cloture?
I'm voting no. I announced yesterday that I'd be voting no on the CR, and I stand by that statement that I did jointly with Senator Martin Heinrich of New Mexico, my colleague.
Are you disappointed in Leader Schumer's decision to support this bill?
Look, we all have the responsibility to represent constituents in all parts of America. The choices that were put in front of the United States Senate by House Republicans were both horrible. They're both bad. What House Republicans set the United States up for should be embarrassing to them. And colleagues are having to make those decisions. If you're going to ask if I support Chuck Schumer, I support Chuck Schumer. I announce that I'll be voting no, and I'm right now, that's where I'm standing.
No, what I'm disappointed in is people focusing on which Democrat should have voted which way, rather than on the Republican cabal that set this scheme up so that we had two horrible and impossible choices that deprived us of the opportunity to vote on a 30-day extension that would lead to a fair, traditional, bipartisan spending bill. It was there to be done, and they just refused to do it to create this mess for us.
Can you share with us how you will vote?
Yeah, I'm a no.
Pro-closure?
Will you put more tariffs on the EU? Will you respond to their retaliation?
Of course I'm going to respond.
You will retaliate
The problem
with more
is
tariffs.
our country didn't respond. Look, the EU was set up in order to take advantage of the United States. European Union's been very tough, and it's our turn too. You know, we get a turn at that also, but they have not been fair. They sue our companies and win massive amounts of money. They sued Apple, won $17 billion, and they use that for other reasons, I guess, or to run the European Union. So I'm not knocking it. They're doing what they should be doing, perhaps, for the European Union, but it does create ill will. And as you know, we're going to be doing reciprocal tariffs. So whatever they charge us, we're charging them. Nobody can complain about that. Whatever it is, it doesn't even matter what it is. If they charge us 25 or 20% or 10% or 2% or 200%, then that's what we're charging them. And so I don't know why people get upset about that, because there's nothing more fair than that.
On tariffs, there's been a lot of on and off, some inconsistency.
There's no inconsistency, only with NBC, which is one of the worst networks on television, by the way. Let me just tell you the inconsistency. I have the right to adjust. And I'm not like a block that just, I won't delay. It's called flexibility. It's not called inconsistency. It's called flexibility. I'll always have flexibility, but there will be very little flexibility once we start. April 2nd is going to be a very big day for the United States of America. The United States of America is going to take back a lot of what was stolen from it by other countries and by, frankly, incompetent U.S. leadership, grossly incompetent.
A British national has died in Kenya after being hit by a government vehicle from President William Ruto's motorcade. 79-year-old Edgar Charles Frederick was struck on Thursday as the motorcade was travelling to a public event in Nairobi. The driver was arrested but later released on cash bail, according to police. The British High Commission is working with Kenyan authorities. The incident sparked outrage online, with many questioning the speed of the motorcade on a busy road. Videos from the scene show Frederick lying on the tarmac with severe head injuries, and the vehicle involved didn't stop. Police say high-speed driving is standard for security reasons during motorcades. Frederick was visiting family in Kenya. A post-mortem will be conducted to determine the cause of death.
And China has called for a ceasefire in the conflict in Sudan during Ramzan. China's envoy to the United Nations has urged the Sudanese armed forces and the paramilitary rapid support forces to achieve a ceasefire as soon as possible. The armed conflict has been escalating, particularly in Khartoum and central and west Sudan, with the two warring parties mobilizing for decisive battles. At a UN Security Council meeting on Sudan, China's permanent representative to the UN said next month the conflict will mark 2 years since its inception and there is still no sign for peace. He added that hostilities between the warring parties have continued unabated and the scale of civilian casualties and displacement has continued to expand, worsening the already dire humanitarian crisis. Aid officials said at the Security Council meeting that the conflict in Sudan has created the largest and the most devastating humanitarian crisis in the world. China has called on all parties to implement the requirements of the Security Council resolutions and create conditions for aid to follow in.
A week ago, the Security Council issued a presidential press statement expressing serious concern over the signing of a political charter by the Rapid Support Forces and other political factions and the announcement of establishing a parallel government. China has noted that the relevant parties have further signed a transitional constitution a few days ago. This move may exacerbate tensions and increase the risk of division, which runs counter to the goal of conflict resolution. China reiterates that Sudan's sovereignty, unity and territorial integrity should be respected, and the UN Charter and international law must be observed.
The envoy further noted that China has repeatedly stressed that all parties should protect civilians from the impact of the war and stop attacks on civilian facilities such as hospitals, schools and markets. Beijing's statement comes at a time when the Rapid Support Forces have frequently launched attacks on camps for displaced persons in and around Al-Fashir in western Sudan. China has urged the Sudanese government to provide necessary support and protection for some displaced persons returning home and vowed support to restore humanitarian channels to Al-Fashir and other places as soon as possible to ensure distribution of relief supplies.
The top diplomats from the Group of 7 industrialized democracies agreed Friday on joint statement expressing support for Ukraine and also condemning the ongoing conflict in Sudan and DRC, among other resolutions. In a statement, the group condemned the ongoing violence and atrocities in Sudan, including widespread sexual violence. The meeting touched on other issues of insecurity, including the war pitting the M23 rebels and the Congolese government in the eastern region.
Coming out of this G7 gathering, which is happening at a hugely important time, 50 years since the founding of the G7, I think we're going to see a unified position, a detailed statement on Ukraine, on the crisis in the Middle East, on war in Africa, in the DRC, Rwanda, and of course in Sudan, and concerns about China's activity in the South China Sea and the behavior of Maduro in Venezuela. All of that has united us. There will be strong language on all of these issues. So this has been a unified conference in which we have found common ground, and I'm pleased at the effort and the sense of warmth that exists across the partners in the G7.
The final communique presented common positions not only on Ukraine but on the Middle East, wars in Africa and Chinese activity in South China Sea.
We spoke about Iran, we spoke about Palestine, Syria, Lebanon, and now let's talk about Turkey. This part of West Asia has always been emerging as a global power in weapon making. In the past year, we have been reporting about this. But in the latest, Turkey now has launched a new technology, one that is possessed by only a few countries around the world. Now, Turkey has the capacity to have guided missiles launched from submarines. Submarine guided launched missiles is Turkey's new emerging weapon power. We tell you more in this report.
Turkey is facing becoming a defense giant, not only in West Asia but also in the global arena. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan announced at Congress that Turkey is a world leader in its production of drones and ranks 11th globally in defense industry exports. Turkey's first homegrown underwater anti-ship cruise missile, Atmaca, completed its first underwater firing test. The missile was launched from the TCG Preveze submarine. Atmaca was designed between 2009 and 2018 by the Turkish Defense from Roketsan and entered the Turkish Army's inventory in 2021. The missile was designed to meet the operational requirements of surface warfare. The missile features its global positioning system, inertial navigation system, barometric altimeter, and radar altimeter to navigate towards its target, while its active radar seeker pinpoints the target with high precision. Its data link provides missiles with 3D mission planning, updating targets re-attacking and terminating the mission. It can also be used on fast patrol boats, frigates and corvettes. The missile can approach its target and skim through the sea at a rapid pace, a technology held only by a few countries worldwide.
Now let's speak about the country I am currently in, Lebanon. Although Israel and Lebanon have agreed on a ceasefire, Israel still is attacking parts of Lebanon, still is deploying forces in 5 main points in the border area with Lebanon. What is to be seen in the ceasefire deal and what would happen next between Lebanon and Israel? We tell you more in this report.
World leaders are working around the clock to find a solution to the Israel-Lebanon border dispute. Despite a ceasefire between the two nations, Israel continues to strike Lebanon. The IDF claims its operation is necessary to eliminate what they call Iran-backed elements, which might regroup and pose a threat to Israel's northern front. After the country sought an extension for the ceasefire on January 26th, Israeli troops are still stationed at 5 key positions in southern Lebanon. Even as Israel freed Lebanese prisoners as a goodwill gesture to Lebanon's new president Joseph Aoun, the IDF announced it killed senior Hezbollah commander responsible for drones and missiles. The US is seeking a political solution to the persistent exchange of cross-border fire between the two countries. Israel has finally agreed to come to the negotiation table. The US President's Special Envoy for West Asia, Morgan Ortagus, who is involved in Lebanon, said that the discussions will focus on the demarcation of the borders and also the future of 5 of Israel's military outposts. It is not clear under what format officials plan to hold the talks, or indeed if they would actually go ahead. The two countries do not have direct formal diplomatic relations. However, if Israel and Lebanon succeed in achieving an agreement on the border, it would undermine Hezbollah's position in Lebanon. The group has maintained its arsenal since the Lebanese civil war and has long argued against Israel's occupation of their country.
Russia's war against Ukraine and the American President Donald Trump's entry into the White House for his second term and also his subsequent actions are forcing a fundamental rethink on the many issues and challenges in Europe. One of them is the question of its regional security and the need to boost its nuclear deterrence to counter potential Russian aggression. Our next story takes a look at the moves that the European nations are considering in the face of the latest changed realities in the region. Take a look.
In the face of an unrelenting Russian advance and the constant bombardment of Ukraine, Europe is fearing the worst. An eventual ceasefire that will be damaging to Ukraine, while raising questions about the future of European security. This unnerving prospect is making European countries demand their own nuclear deterrent. While Poland has called on the US to transfer nuclear weapons to Polish territory, Germany wants European nuclear powers to boost US's nuclear protection. For nearly 80 years now, Europe has relied on the US nuclear umbrella to deter potential adversaries. The North Atlantic Treaty Organization structured its security policy around this extended deterrence, with America stationing its nuclear weapons in several European countries. But the extended deterrence has always been a delicate balance, depending on Washington's willingness to risk nuclear conflict to defend its allies. Other than the US, Britain, despite its relatively small nuclear force, has assigned its arsenal to NATO's collective defense strategy. France, however, has historically maintained a more independent stance, consistently prioritizing national sovereignty over its nuclear arsenal, with Poland always looking at Russia as a clear and a present danger. its President Duda is calling on the US to base its nuclear weapons on Polish soil. Duda says it is obvious that Donald Trump could redeploy US nuclear warheads stored in Western Europe or the US to Poland. But positioning US nuclear weapons in Poland is likely to be viewed by Russian President Vladimir Putin as a provocation. The Polish president also said that he recently discussed this proposal with US's Special Envoy for Ukraine, Keith Kellogg. Germany's Friedrich Merz has also said he would like talks with France, as well as the UK, about sharing their nuclear weapons. The Chancellor-in-Waiting has said sharing nuclear weapons is a key issue, but Merz stressed the boost by European nuclear powers could not be a substitute for US's nuclear protection of Europe, ultimately underscoring Europe's inescapable dependence on the US for its security. Bureau Report. V-On. World is One.
Прежде чем начать работу, хотел бы сказать, что мы ознакомились с сегодняшним обращением президента США господина Трампа пощадить жизни военнослужащих украинской армии, части которой заблокированы российскими войсками в зоне вторжения ВСУ в Курскую область. В этой связи обращаем внимание, что украинские боевики совершили в зоне вторжения многочисленные преступления против гражданского населения. Эти деяния, как я уже говорил, квалифицируются Генеральной прокуратурой Российской Федерации как терроризм. Вместе с тем, мы с пониманием относимся к призыву президента Трампа руководствоваться в отношении этих военнослужащих соображениями гуманитарного характера. В этой связи подчеркну, что в случае сложения оружия и сдачи в плен им будет гарантирована жизнь и достойное обращение в соответствии с нормами международного права и законами Российской Федерации.